Hello, this is a discussion of the salary comparison database that I've used for the discussion of the concepts, as well as I gave it as a part of the homework, the first part, so I'll go over that a little bit, as well as using this from creating and using this from the SQLiteManager in Firefox, as well as connecting to the Python environment. So I'll sort of go over that process. First, just going through the tables and how they are linked together. You probably did this during the database course, but I thought I will review it quickly, and then also show you what is required to be done on the homework. So you can see that there are three tables here: skill location and skill location. This is the connecting table. So if I switch over to my notepad to draw, so this is skill with skill ID and skill name as the attributes, and then I have a location table with location ID and location name, which is a combination of I just used the city and the state. So these and the primary keys for these two are location, skill ID for skill, and location ID for location. And this is essentially a many-to-many association. Each skill can be associated with many locations. Not essential it has to be, but it could be. And then location could be associated with many skills. Again, the minimum would be, it may not be associated with any. But what we are trying to track, if you look at the table, the data that I have here, so I'm trying to connect this, and I've called this the salary comparison database. So basically, on a very simple level, comparing the salaries paid for different skills at different locations. By the way, I've linked it to this article here, which was on Data Science Central, which sort of does a comparison between what they have identified as the main data analytics skills: Python, R, SQL, and then I believe this is mainly in the San Francisco area. They've done a survey of the salaries based off of different, for San Francisco, for different jobs, title searches that have been posted. So I don't know how rigorous this is, but I just used that for coming up with some sample data. And the skill location is essentially the connecting table connecting location and skill. So if I switch back here, it's essentially this association table, which has for its own attributes, it has salary year, salary amount. So salary year, salary amount. Okay, so those are its attributes. And then to connect to skill and to location, you set up the foreign keys, which are skill ID and location ID to connect to the two skill and the location tables. Now the primary key for this, and what did I call this table? I called it skill location. Skill location. The primary key, well, it is, since there could be several locations for the same skill and several skills at the same location, it is, well, at the minimum a composite of these two. But this combination could be, we could track the salary amounts over a period of several years. In the data, if you see, I provide 3 different years, 2014, 2015, and 2016. So if I used only a skill ID and location ID as my primary key, well, it's going to fail because the same data, same values are going to get repeated over multiple rows for different years. So whenever there is a time aspect involved, you have to bring in that as a composite primary key. So the primary key is going to be comprised of these 3 columns, and you're going to have 2 foreign keys, one to skill and the other to location. Okay, so this gives you sort of the data model. Now, looking at how this gets implemented, if you go to Firefox, hopefully most of you have been able to install and set up, add in SQLiteManager. Once you've added it in, you can access it, and it's asking, do I want to open a previous database that I had opened? I will say no. Instead, I'm going to start up and create a new database, file, new database, and I'm going to enter this as salary comparison. And then it's asking me where I want to save this. It's literally one single file that gets saved as the database file. So I'm going to put it in the class discussion folder. And so if I go into the class discussion folder now, I'll see this salary comparison.SQLite database that's been created. Okay, of course this is an empty database as of now, and then I can run write my create table statements and run them, because just to save on time, I have posted some text files for you to well, for SQL, the simplest seems to be creating, writing the script, saving it in a text file. So I just use Notepad, and I posted this on eCampus for you to download. So if you need to restart, you can just keep dropping the tables, but when you're creating the tables, you have to create the main tables, well, what I call the parent tables first. What I mean by that is skill and location have to exist prior to skill location, which depends on these two. And when you're dropping, you have to go in the opposite direction, starting from the dependent table being dropped first, and then you have to drop these. So if you use this code, you have to do it in this way. So starting if you're dropping, but this is if you want to just clean up and recreate your database. So I'm just going to start with create skill. I could, of course, try to create all 3 tables at the same time, but I'll just create one at a time. I could type it from scratch, but I'm just going to do this relatively quickly so that it doesn't take up too much time. So I'm creating the one. This is you're most likely quite familiar with this, the SQL syntax. There are some differences in for SQLite, the data types. You have integer and text as as some of the data. I think there are a total of 5 data types. The ones that we are mainly using are integer and text, and then the auto increment. So I state that skill ID is going to be an integer. It serves as the primary key, and it auto increments, which means it starts from 1, and each time I insert a row into skill, it's going to increase by 1. So I'll go ahead, run the SQL to create the skill table. Okay, and the SQLite sequence gets created to be able to auto generate the auto increment value. Okay, so that's my first table, and then I'll go create my second table. Okay, so create table location, run the SQL, and so you can see I have my location table created here. Now I have my 2 parent tables. At this point I can go in and create my third table, which is skill location. And skill location, you can see, has it has the connecting columns with foreign keys, skill ID, location ID, and then I specify that the primary key is composed of 3 different columns: skill ID, location ID, and salary year. And the foreign keys, I reference these skill ID and location ID in the parent tables. Okay, so I can go ahead and create this dependent table. I go into the SQL editing window. I'm just creating one table, so I'm basically overwriting whatever was there previously. Run this. So now I have my third table created on the database. Okay. Once I have that, I'm just going to put in this sample data for each of the tables. So for skill, I have 4 different rows. So you can see that I'm only inserting into skill name because skill ID is an auto increment column, so it will automatically generate the values. Okay, so I'll go in here, insert this insert statement. Each time I'll have to run this. You can run it from here as well, but I'm just going to click on this button, run it, and you'll see it's not an error. And if you want to make sure that it has been inserted, you can do select all from skill, and if I run this, I should be seeing the results set here saying that I have actually inserted. If I accidentally run that insert statement twice, obviously it will get inserted all over again here as 5, 6, 7, 8 with 4 rows. You have to be a little careful about that. So I'm going to now insert the second table's sample data. Again, I just chose 4 cities in different regions of the country, and I'm inserting it into location name. The same thing about the location ID being auto incremented. Okay, and finally you need to have the third table, which is skill location, and obviously this should have values that are there in skill and location, that is 1, 1, and so on. So I'll just get all of these values until the very end. Copy this, paste it here. And if I run this, okay, basically I get, and the way I can check is if I do a select all. The other way of doing it, and I've given you a sample query here, which we will use for our exercise as well in the Python environment. Basically, I'm joining the three tables and saying select the skill name, location name, salary, and year and amount. Okay, and I want to display this. So I'll just put this in over here, so you can see I'm doing a select across the three tables by joining them on the foreign key primary key connections. And so if I were to run this, I get a listing of for the three different years, for the 4 different skills and the different cities, the salary amounts. Okay, so this is working inside of the SQLiteManager environment directly on the database. Now, as far as the homework is concerned, let me switch to where I posted it. Okay, I'll close this out. I posted some videos for earlier for you to hopefully get familiar with adding in SQLite. Again, SQLiteManager on Firefox. If you're having any questions, please do let me know. I'll close this out and just go to the homework. The homework for this module, course content, and in the homework assignment 3, okay, so I've said part 1 is to create tables, inserting data and querying a database. So so what this requires is that you have to introduce a table for data analyst, and so that data analyst, so if I go into my my notepad here, so I need to say, like, let's see, where would it be most convenient? Okay, so data analyst, okay, and I have the attributes that I have suggested for data analyst are analyst ID and analyst name. So analyst ID, which will be the primary key, analyst name. Okay, so you have to create these, and this is going to be an auto increment, and this is going to be a text data type. Now, each data analyst, I've said, is associated or based in one location, while each location can have multiple analysts. So each data analyst is associated with one location. Each location can have multiple data analysts. So so we can have location ID as a foreign key in analyst. Okay, so the connection is over here, so you'll have to set up a foreign key. The primary key is this analyst ID, and the foreign key location ID. I've also asked you, or given the business rule, that an analyst can have multiple skills, and each skill can be possessed by multiple analysts. So essentially this is a many-to-many association. Okay. It doesn't have any attributes, so you don't have, so the way you represent this, and I've asked you to call this data analyst data analyst skill, data analyst skill. Now this doesn't have any separate attributes of its own. It's just serving as the connecting table between skill and data analyst. So it's going to have two attributes, which is the analyst ID and skill ID. Okay, so analyst ID, skill ID, and this will serve as a composite primary key and also the foreign key to the two tables it connects to. So that's what you need to do on your homework, which means that you, and I've said, enter some sample data of 10 rows for the data analyst and 20 rows for the connecting table, the many-to-many. Okay, and then use that to write these queries. So basically, you would have to go into SQLiteManager. You're basically adding on to this database that we have, salary comparison. You'll have to create another 2 more tables, and then enter in sample data, and then you need to submit to me the text file containing the SQL statements to do that. Okay, so that's as far as the first one is concerned, and then of course you have to connect from Python, which we will go into. For the second part, you're using a pre-existing database called flights.db, and I have provided it as a link which you can download and save this flights.db to the directory in which you're working. In this case, for me, it's class discussion. So the way I would work with flights is just to, I'll just go in and close this database, and then connect to a database. In this case, it's not, it only automatically shows the SQLite files. In this case, flights is, it's a .db, it doesn't have the .SQLite extension, so you have to look for all files, select flights, open it, and then you should have access to all of the tables that are there in the flights database. And I would like for you to look at it closely. You can see airlines has an ID, and then airports have an ID, and routes have an airline ID, source ID, and destination ID. So the airline ID is obviously referring to this primary key in airlines. The interesting part here is source ID and destination ID are referencing the airport ID. So this is the connecting link between airlines, and that is routes is the connecting link between airlines and airports in this database. Obviously, this query is no longer relevant, so you'll have to sort of write your select all from airlines, and this, you'll get that. So just examine it and use that to work on question 2. You obviously don't need to create any tables, or you are even all these questions are really working, connecting to the database from the Python environment. Okay, I'll stop here and then create a separate video for connecting to the database from the Python environment.